With the current trend of Disney remaking animated classics into live-action movies, I couldn't help recently casting my mind back to a time when this trend often seemed to go in the opposite direction. Because throughout the late 80s and early 90s, live-action movies being remade into a cartoon series happened on a regular basis. In fact, for a time it felt as though every hit at the box office seemed to get its own spin-off in the animated world. I mean, Jim Carrey alone had 3 box office hits from the mid-90s reappear on the small screen in animated form, with The Mask, Ace Ventura: Pet Detective, and Dumb and Dumber all adapted with varying success. For me, the best example of an animated show being successfully adapted from a live-action feature was The Real Ghostbusters, adapted from Ivan Reitman's 1984 classic, Ghostbusters. The movie itself was a huge success when it was released in 1984, and was at the time the highest grossing comedy in history, taking in $282 million during its initial run. The story of a group of parapsychology research professors who go into business providing a paranormal investigation and elimination service, or ghostbusting, would quickly become a cultural phenomenon and have a lasting impact on pop culture, launching a massive multimedia franchise that would include video games, comic books, clothing and costumes, music, board games, and even amusement rides. But the most significant franchise that would come from the success of the Ghostbusters movie was the 1986 animated series. Now, the story behind the show's title, The Real Ghostbusters, is an interesting one, if also a little complicated, and goes back to the early stages of development in the original movie. Having decided on the title for the movie, Columbia Pictures ran into trouble when it was discovered that the name was copyrighted by Universal Studios on account of their 1970s children's show, The Ghostbusters, and they eventually settled on a price of $500,000 to use the title. As luck would have it, when animation studio DIC decided to develop an animated series from the Ghostbusters movie, rival animation studio Filmation was at the same time developing their own animated series based on that Universal Studios children's show from the 1970s. DIC are said to have added the Real to their Ghostbusters cartoon to differentiate it from the Filmation show. So considering The Real Ghostbusters ran for 7 seasons and was also nominated for Emmy Awards during that time, what exactly was it about the show that made it such a successful crossover? When you think of the Ghostbusters movie, there are a number of iconic images that automatically come to mind. The old firehouse, the proton packs, the ghost traps, the uniforms, and the Ecto-1 vehicle. To me, there's something about the colour in a lot of these images, such as the streams from the proton packs, or the bright red paint on the Ecto-1, that make them stand out against the grey concrete of the New York City streets in the movie. And those bright colours transfer really well into animation. A large amount of the movie's budget was spent on the special effects required to bring the ghosts and demonic creatures to life on screen. But something that's noticeable when rewatching Ghostbusters is that having been made shortly before the advent of CGI, the effects do look quite dated. And so when it comes to the animated series, there's definitely more scope for the amount of ghosts that can appear and gives them a greater range of motion. I always think that the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man kind of has the appearance of a cartoon drawing, and he fits quite naturally when he appears in the animated show. One of the most enjoyable aspects of the Ghostbusters movie are the dynamics and friendships between the main characters, and this carries through really well into the animated series, despite the voice cast comprising of all new actors. Surprisingly, Ernie Hudson, who played Winston in the film, was the only original actor to audition to voice his character in the show, but the part instead went to Arsenio Hall. Interestingly, the part of Peter Venkman was voiced by Lorenzo Music, who also performed the voice of Garfield. Bill Murray would, of course, later provide the voice of Garfield in the Garfield movie. But I think probably the greatest thing about The Real Ghostbusters is the way it manages to, in a way, insert itself into the canon timeline of the Ghostbuster movies, with many references to the movies and explanations for changes to the show's layout. For example, one of the biggest differences in The Real Ghostbusters series was the addition of Slimer as a friend of the group, as opposed to in the movie, when he was simply a ghost who needed busting. Another change from the movie was that the Ghostbusters uniforms were individually colour coded, unlike the matching beige uniforms in the original. Both of these changes are explained in the episode Citizen Ghost, where a flashback story told by Peter picks up right at the end of the movie, where the Ghostbusters have just defeated Gozer, and it's revealed that the old uniforms have been covered in ectoplasmic energy from the explosion of Marshmallow, thus resulting in the need for new uniforms. The real reason for the different colour uniforms is most likely to help differentiate each Ghostbuster with a new audience, but I love that they make the effort to explain the change for fans of the movie. In the following episode, Take 2, we even see the Ghostbusters attend both the set and the premiere of their own movie, and reference the stars of the film, with Winston commenting that Murray, Aykroyd and Ramis sounds like a law firm. The show's run from 1986 to 91 overlaps with the release of the movie's sequel Ghostbusters 2, and the animated show manages to incorporate elements of the sequel into its storylines. In the sequel, the character of Louis Tully is given a more prominent role, and this is reflected in the real Ghostbusters, as Louis is introduced in Season 5 as the group's accountant and friend. There are also references in the Season 5 episode Partners in Slime to Vigo the Carpathian, the villain from the sequel, as well as a reappearance of the psychoreactive slime which filled the sewers. Without a doubt, the real Ghostbusters became a franchise in its own right, with a long-running comic book series as well as a popular toy line based purely on the cartoon. And despite finishing its run in 1991, the show got a sequel 6 years later in the form of Extreme Ghostbusters, with Egon, Janine and Slimer remaining from the original series, and Egon acting as a mentor to a group of college students who would form the new generation of Ghostbusters. Looking back at the real Ghostbusters, at a time when a direct sequel to the original movies is due to be released this year, it's interesting to wonder if there might be a place for another animated version of the Ghostbusters in the future. Thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button if you haven't done already. Keep an eye out for my next video, which is going to publish next Friday, and I'm hoping to publish a video every Friday going forward. If anybody has any suggestions about topics that they'd like to see covered in a video, I'd absolutely love to hear it in the comments section. And I just again want to say a big thank you to everybody who's subscribed to this channel already. I really appreciate the support. I'd also be really interested to hear in the comments section what people think of the real Ghostbusters show, or indeed the new movie that's due to be released this year. I hope you all have a great week, and I'll see you all next time.